What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty Podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word. If you haven't heard, I'm your host, John Buhler, leader writer for FanSided. Before we begin, be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, give this thing a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. It really helps the show grow. As of the time of this recording here on late Wednesday morning, there are 416 subscribers here to the channel. Let's get this to 420 to 500 and to our ultimate goal of infinity beyond. That's what we need to do here. Per usual, I've got a very exciting show for you guys today. I'm a little beat up. Covered the NBA draft first round last night, so I don't have a lot of. I don't have my fastball today, but I'm gonna do the best I can because I love you guys and you deserve this. And I'm gonna put forth, really good high end content that Dirty Bird Nation deserves. So, with that, let's get going with our first run of the day. It seems as though the Tua Tagovailoa signing is already starting to pay out in dividends. It's all about value. Obviously, I kind of formatted the show a little bit more before Kyle Pitts signed his extension with the Dirty Birds, but with Tua being under contract for really just pennies on the dollar, I mean, this is working out quite well for the Falcons. I put this down on my notes. It feels like he is motivated, healthy, and playing with a real chip on his shoulders since coming over to Atlanta. With every practice that he's healthy and Penix is not, it seems like he is currying favor with the fan base, which I'm kind of surprised that that's what's going on. But let's be real. All it's going to take is one bad game from him with a healthy Penix on the sidelines for Falcons fans to sour on him. And what I meant by dividends here is like, look, these are the type of dividends that you get paid monthly. These are like real estate, I'm like REITs, kind of a thing like that. Like the yield is incredibly high. I don't know how sustainable it is, but like we are the value that he has for the Dolphins paying the bulk of his contract as opposed to what we are, that's being demonstrated here, in minicamp in the early part of the offseason. Got some new images up there of Tua in a Falcons uniform. What a sight to behold that is. But really the biggest thing here I would say is, keep in mind, this is a newer regime. This is the one that did not draft Penix. The franchise has equity in him, not necessarily Matt Ryan, Kevin Stefanski, or Ian Cunningham. I guess with Penix, like that's kind of more along the lines of that. I'm just confusing things here, but look, they made a calculated decision to bring Tua in. They know that he was a blue chip prospect coming out of Alabama, a little bit slider of build, throws a beautiful spiral, won a lot of games at Alabama. A little bit injury prone, certainly has some concussion issues here. But for what he is making and for what he can do for this team, and more importantly, his biggest trait is accuracy. I believe Kevin Stefanski, Alex Van Pelt, Tommy Rees have all raved about that throughout the process. If he can just deliver strikes to Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson out of the backfield, maybe even get some looks to Jahan Dotson, that would be good for the team across the board. So, like, just because we are getting dividends from this, like, again, they might cut the dividends at some point. I mean, he may get cut. I mean, this is just trying to use a financial term here to try to explain what's going on as best as I can. But it's nice to kind of be on this side of the coin here. I will say, though, just thinking about this now, I think a lot about the 21 team, where it's a new regime with Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot taking over for, Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff. Falcons were in a bad spot up against the books. They couldn't really be an active participant in free agency. Everybody that they signed kind of was on like a one-year prove-it deal. Some guys made the most of it, namely Cordell Patterson. Obviously, I think Lorenzo Carter kind of did good there for a while until he didn't. There have been other players out there. I mean, that I'm probably playing count again. That was like 5-6 years ago, in all honesty. But these kind of, bargain basement sort of deals, sort of transactions, sort of additions, you're hoping to get value. You're hoping to get players on a discount that, maybe others wouldn't sniff. Obviously they come with some baggage. Obviously there's some variation of damaged goods. But let's be real, we all are damaged goods. Life's hard, man. That's why no one survives. Gotta love me some Queens of the Stone Age. That's absolutely brilliant there from Josh Homme. But doubt that Tua has no idea that Queens of the Stone Age exist. If he did, I would be legitimately shocked. But just because he is paying out dividends early does not mean that that's going to be sustainable. Maybe you're paying out more than you can afford at this point. But for the value, for what he is, for what he can provide this team, it's nice to kind of it's nice to have a plant that can produce fruit right away. We don't have to sit here and wait for this thing to develop, for its trunk to get strong enough to be able to support fruit to feed whatever it is in an orchard. Again, Tua is a proven product. He's made a lot of money with the Dolphins, former top 5 pick, I think. Yeah. I think he went 5. I think Herbert went 6 again. But obviously he's on a new team and Herbert's not. And this is the Blog and Dirty podcast. But yeah, it does seem as though the value is working out. But you don't win games with value. You win games by winning games. And hopefully Tua can be a part of that in some way, shape, or form for this team this year. God knows we need it. And on that note, let's get rolling here with our second run of the day. I came across this article over the weekend, earlier in the week, what have you, about potential breakout candidates there for the Atlanta Falcons. And I know people that are like not in the know would say, oh, Xavier Watts is a breakout candidate. Like anybody who would write that or say that doesn't know what they're talking about, doesn't know this team. They're just kind of making it up as that goes. One guy that I do think works as a breakout candidate, that'd be Jalon Walker. This is very interesting here too. Jeff Ulbrich said that, the Falcons defense should have probably featured him more than they did as a rookie. I mean, of course, like lesson learned here. Zach Harrison, who's been with the team a little bit longer, mentioned his impact to the locker room, and Ulbrich's obviously called him a force multiplier on defense. There were other guys mentioned in this article like Jahan Dotson and Divine Diablo. Again, I think those guys have been in the league a little bit longer. I don't necessarily can define Dotson as a breakout candidate. I mean, he's been in the league for a while, same with Diablo. And as I was kind of reading this, it reminded me a little bit of Matt Ryan's speech to the rookie class. That he could be, everybody on this team can be a leader. Sometimes you need somebody who's brand new to this organization to help carry along a guy who's been in the league for 14 years, whose life's changed. And even though Walker's only a second-year pro, it seems every step of the way he is checking the box to be a great leader for this team, this organization, this franchise. This is what made him such a well-known commodity at Georgia. This is why, he won the butt kiss. This is why he was a top 15 pick. He paved the way. I mean, he set the standard, or he reestablished a standard in Athens. CJ Allen, now the Colts, took that running. I expect Raylan Wilson to do that this year, wearing the green dot for the Dogs too. Georgia's linebacker, and obviously Jalon Walker's learned a lot from the likes of like Nakobe Dean, Roquan Smith, basically players a little bit younger than me. I mean, I think Leonard Floyd's a little bit closer to my age. I mean, he played there. He only played for Rick anyway, but that's not the point. When you have a breakout candidate, where you have a guy that's doing everything that you need to in and around, the facility, it's all about finding how to use Walker effectively. When he came out of Georgia, he was about being the ultimate Swiss Army knife. Like, you could deploy him anywhere. He could really, you could disguise blitz packages. I mean, God, that reminds you of just some Mike Nolan, Mike Smith nonsense from yesteryear, but you could do that with him. He had 5.5 sacks as a rookie. I mean, James Pierce Jr. had more, but look, that's about what was expected of him. Some people are like, oh, that wasn't good enough. I mean, I think he did have a little bit of an injury at some point too, but like, it's about figuring out the context of what he can and cannot do within Jeff Ulbrich's defense. It does seem as though Brick's like, okay, we can use him more. They're kind of gradually bringing him along. Obviously, because he's a former first-round pick, you do have the option to give him a 5th-year contract extension if you want to. We don't have to get to that bridge right now. There's not a crashing sense of urgency to do so, but it's looking more and more likely that the first-round pick from 2 years ago is going to pan out for the Dirty Birds. I just I guess to kind of really tie a bow on this year with it is it does seem like he's right on schedule with where he needs to be. Like, everything with him has gone according to plan. Maybe some people are impatient. Maybe some people want him to do more than what he could in that moment in time. Again, I think he only played 3 years at Georgia, so he is still kind of a young dude. But you also have to add in this, and again, I wish I had this in my notes, but the Salisbury, North Carolina native isn't playing for the Panthers. He's playing for one of the Panthers' biggest rivals here in Atlanta. And I think that will have him playing with a little bit more fire. And again, like people like different teams all over the place, but I do think if your hometown team kind of passes on you, you don't ever forget that, particularly if you are a high-end player and they could have used you. I mean, Carolina, if they got him, they'd be in a much better spot than we are. Although Tetairoa McMillan's a fantastic player for them too. They probably made since they're doing whatever they can to help elevate and bring the most out of Bryce Young at quarterback. Again, I think he's the Sam Bradford of his generation. And this is the Block and Dirty podcast, but I look at Walker and I'm excited to see him as a breakout player. He's a guy that I would say on this team, I'm the most excited to see what he becomes, what he does. Like, could he be a Pro Bowl caliber player? Could he be an All Pro? I don't know. Maybe he'll just be really good. Maybe he'll just be a fine player. Maybe he'll be just a guy that shows up every day, does his job, and makes his teammates better. That's all you can really hope for. Again, Jeff Ulbrich called him a force multiplier, and he's on our team and not anybody else's. So very excited about that. Don't have any coffee today. Life happens, but this is kind of going to be where the midline ad break is. I'm going to gather my thoughts here for a few seconds. This is where it's going to go, and I'll get kind of rolling with the second half of our show here with whatever I'm going to do for pass. Yeah, that was positive. This is not, and I'm going to pass with this. The 2024 NFL draft class for the Falcons is kind of going the way of the 21 class, unfortunately. This stems from Casey Washington being released. I believe the Falcons now have, I think all that remains from the 21 class. I'll get my notes are all over the place here. So Michael Penix Jr., Braylon Trice, who's yet to play for us, Brandon Dorlus, who's coming off an injury, and J.D. Bertrand, who's not any good, are the only guys from that draft class who still remain. Again, I've already mentioned this. That's pretty straightforward. Rick Horhoro was traded to the Jaguars for, I believe, Mason Smith, Jace McClellan, Casey Washington, and Zion Logue are now, on other teams. When you go back to the 21 class, the only guy that remains is Pitts, and we just extended him. We'll touch on him probably at the final segment of the show. Yeah, he's gonna be the punt. Shocker. But in the 21 class, the only guy that was really good besides Pitts was Drew Dahlman. I mean, he was on this program when it was in its early days. He got that big deal with the Bears, and then he ultimately retired. Obviously, Stanford guys that have a lot of other things going on for them besides just football. You can do whatever he wants to. Protect your dome, dude. But like the 24 class is starting to go in that direction. I think 22 and 23. You've got guys like Drake London and Bijan Robinson here. And then what was it, 25? You got Xavier Watts, you got Jalon Walker, James Pierce Jr. could still play at a very high-end level. And then we'll see what happens, with the 26 class, with the likes of Avion Terrell, Zachariah Branch, Harold Perkins Jr., you name it. But I think when we evaluate Terry Fontenot's tenure here, we will only think about the big hits and the giant misses. Like, up in his office in his war room, he's got the jerseys of all the star players he signed. He drafted London and Robinson, Pitts probably, but then there's also other ones out there like the Jalen Mayfields of the world. Obviously, drafting is hard. It's a very tough and unforgiving business. I mean, everybody in the NFL is working their absolute ass off. Let's not be naive to that. Everybody here is giving their absolute best as often as they can. People are putting in the work. People are putting their families and their livelihoods and their health on on the back burner just to go 4-13. We've been a little bit better than that, not by much, but we have been better than that. Again, that's like when you're dealing with, when you're with the best of the best and there's 32 of these things, someone's going to be one and someone's going to be 32. It's just the way it goes, brother. But, I sit there and think about 24. I'm like, that was a draft that I felt, in retrospect, Atlanta really needed to hit on. And again, Dorlus has been great. Obviously, his injuries really puts a damper on this. Braylon Trice hasn't been able to make the field the last 2 years. He may not even play in the NFL. I don't even know. That was weird. Maybe that was a Jimmy Lake thing. I don't know. It was a little too much Washington here. But the only really way that draft class can really be salvaged, because JD Bertrand's not doing that, is if Penix becomes the guy. We're running out of time there. We're running out of runway. He's got to make it happen. Again, Penix, very likable guy. I've interviewed him. Tremendous leader, throws the ball like an absolute howitzer. I think Matt Ryan's mentioned before that his footwork is a little sloppy. That kind of causes some issues. So again, maybe having Ryan in the building, having an offensive-minded head coach in Stefanski, having a former quarterback in Tommy Rees, Alex Van Pelt on your staff too, you can hone in on that. You can focus in on that just a little bit more. Let's be real. Zach Robinson. I mean, he played like in the air raid. He played like for Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. Like does that really translate to the league? It was he was a really good player for the Pokes, but like not really much of anything for the Patriots, the Bengals, wherever he played in his career. And I was at Tampa. I think just having a little bit more refined focus. Again, a guy who's played for Boston College, a guy who's been the head coach of the Browns and Vikings, a guy who's been OC for the Browns and Alabama and played at Notre Dame. Like that's a little more pro style. Keep the main thing the main thing. Penix can learn to take snaps under center. People can learn to do a lot of other things here. I mean, I'm making graphics now. I'm honing so much more on my editorial processes. It's been a slow, painful, and arduous grind. It's breaking me down, but we're doing the best we can. Don't let the world break you down. You're good people out there, guys. Just let you know that. But anyway, like with all the stuff that was going on in 2024, I mean, you signed Cousins to a massive deal, and then you draft Penix. When you do things as an organization that brings a spotlight to you for maybe not the best reasons or puts a target on your back, you got to hit. And, you can't miss here, because like you're going to end up being harpooned like a 19th century New England whale. And ultimately the 2024 class is kind of, that whole offseason is kind of what defined Terry Fontenot. Ultimately, this kind of set the Falcons up for, I don't know, like decent success under him, but like muted and kind of unfulfilling. I mean, he did draft some guys. And I will say though, like compared to Thomas Dimitroff, who would always hit in his first round picks, he'd miss a lot too, and a bunch of other picks. But it's like we got to figure out ways as an organization to hit on days 2 and 3, because day 2 is where you build contending teams, and day 3 is where you find value. Everybody can make the main thing and hit on their big pick. I guess I got maybe another thought or two kind of about the 21 draft. That was a wild one. I mean, people are like, yeah, we shouldn't have drafted Pitts for it. I mean, Jamar Chase would have picked later. Penix still won a few picks later. But I mean, the first 3 picks were, Trevor Lawrence, who's okay, Zach Wilson, who's awful, and Trey Lance, I don't think is in the league anymore. And then also Mac Jones and Justin Fields were first-round picks. Not really a good draft across the board. Again, COVID was a weird time. Having to draft people after that season was odd. Give people some grace here. I mean, Jamar Chase didn't even play during COVID. I don't know. Micah Parsons didn't either. Just a weird time. Weird time in our lives. The further we get removed away from it, we got to remember that. But I guess like the last thing that I want to say about this is, good franchises hit on someone in every draft. This, along with bad coaching hires, is kind of why the Falcons have been the Falcons. Like you got to hit. You can't go. You can't roll. You can't have a donut. You got to have something each year coming into your organization, because every asset's important. If you're going to take a swing, you better hit. Because are the Eagles whiffing? They're not. Are the Lions whiffing under Brad Holmes? I don't think so. Have the Chiefs hit? A lot of times they have. I think when you're looking at people that are the high-end GMs in this league, Howie Roseman, Brett Veach, Les Snead of the Rams, Brad Holmes the Lions, they're hitting. They're finding ways to be productive, to add value to their teams in situations and spots where maybe not everybody can see it. That's why they're the best of the best, and that's kind of what I'm hoping Ian Cunningham and the new regime can do. All right, and let's get on it. Let's get here with some punt here. As expected, I'm going to talk about Kyle Pitts. He got paid, but will the Atlanta Falcons reap the benefits of this? I'm going to pull this up here, make sure I got this absolutely right. A lot of people were so Adam Schefter says Kyle Pitts and the Atlanta Falcons reached an agreement on a 3-year, $54 million contract that includes $36 million guaranteed. It's the largest 3-year contract for a tight end in NFL history. David Mulugeta of Athletes First and Andre Odom confirmed the deal. This is I feel like we've kind of come full circle with Kyle Pitts here. First off, being a David Mulugeta client is significant. I think the other guy on the team of note is AJ Terrell. And I think maintaining a good relationship with him and his agency and his representation is only good. Some teams don't do that. It's the same sort of thing where, like, you want to probably keep a good have a good rapport with Drew Rosenhaus and these guys because they represent a lot of very important people in the sport. I understand that Pitts is a very polarizing guy. And I don't have a lot of notes here because this is kind of relatively new to the outline here. But here's what I'll say. This guy's just not had like a lot of luck on his side. I mean, he dominated at Florida during COVID with Kyle Trask throwing in the ball and Kadarius Toney being his running mate. Obviously, those two guys don't have an NFL career very much, and Pitts still does. What I think hurts Pitts is he's kind of soft-spoken. He kind of keeps himself. He's a likable guy. He may come across as aloof, but he doesn't care. That's not true. He's just a person. He's just a human being. He's just really good at football. Again, I've talked to Kyle Pitts before, and I got the impression, like, yeah, this is a good dude. And I think he's a very positive guy. He gets very down on himself. That kind of impacts his productivity. He's a human being. Who among us has not had that happen to them at various stages of their lives, professional, personal, what have you? I mentioned this also, too, in the previous segment, the 21 draft was a crapshoot. I think also the fact he comes to Atlanta. He gets to play 1 year with Matt Ryan before we screwed the pooch with that. Gets to play for Arthur Smith, Raheem Morris. That's not super great. And then he's also had guys like Marcus Mariota, Taylor Heineke, Desmond Ridder, Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix throwing him the ball. Like, this is why Matt Ryan should be held in higher lore in sports. For 14 years, we had him. I think Matt Schaub had 3 starts, or a start, and then maybe Chris Berman had 2 throughout Matt Ryan's time here. Don't take that for granted. When you have the right quarterback, that takes the pressure off everybody else. Pitt still found ways to be productive. I think comparatively across the league for top 4 or 5 tight ends, he's kind of been there. There have been some times where he absolutely takes over. I mentioned this on a previous episode. He was talking with I think he had a conversation after a really bad performance versus the Saints. Falcons won. He didn't play good. He's like, he kind of had a come to Jesus there meeting with his position coach. He made it work out. It was fine. Then he went out there and just went on a tear, like helped lit up the Bucs, like basically kept the Bucs out of the postseason. Cousins always say his best for the Bucs. It's kind of nuts how that always shook out. We struggled versus the Panthers during the Raheem Morris regime. It's always like that. But look, I'm okay with the contract. Like, it did seem as though this new regime valued Pitts. They're like, we're not going to be, we're not going to beat ourselves up here. We're going to make this happen. They've always been willing to give Kyle every opportunity to be good. And there's a lot to like here. And I think, the fact the Falcons are continuing to believe in him shows that, like, there's some level of loyalty. I mean, what really is that there in this world? But it's nice to see, or the idea of that. The idea is, like, so he's under contract for like 3 more years. This is year 6, so he's going to be here for the next 3 beyond this. I think this takes over he got franchise tagged. So he's going to be here. People are like, oh, we can trade him. Not anymore. And I think when you're figuring out the quarterback room, you want to have a tight end you can trust. You want a guy who's a safety valve, a guy who can make explosive plays. Kevin Stefanski really values tight end. That's what he did when he came up with the Vikings and certainly with the Browns. Matt Ryan valued the tight end. And also, I think Matt Ryan kind of being more back in the building is like, we're not letting this guy walk. We'd be stupid to do that. Because what happens? He goes to the Eagles. He goes to play for his hometown Eagles, lights up, and helps the Eagles win a Super Bowl. And we're sitting here, just field farting with our thumbs. I was trying to think of a better analogy that I was going to say, but that's what's on the show here, because we're going to try to keep this thing on the rails as best as we can. Anyway, the biggest thing I think with this is, you've extended Drake London, you've now extended Pitts. you've given yourself a runway to figure out what comes next with Bijan Robinson, because you know he's getting paid too. Then I think this takes some pressure off of like, what do you got to do with Penix? Because you got to figure out like, okay, are we going to give him the 5th-year option after this season? Right now, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So maybe you enter the 2027 draft with the idea of drafting his replacement, his successor under this new regime. Then again, I don't think that Stefanski would have taken this job without realizing that Penix is still a really high-end player. Oh, it's just life's weird, man. Life's hard. But I'm glad Pitts got paid. I'm glad that like the Falcons are choosing to do right by them. And maybe this will work out. Maybe he'll get another Pro Bowl here. It was pretty close a year ago. But I think this is just a smarter financial decision. Again, it's only 3 years. I mean, money's money. The salary cap continues to grow, but you can't always pay everybody. The fact we're not paying our quarterbacks a lot of money either. I think Cousins' deal is still on the books. The Raiders are paying some. We're paying a lot more than him. That'll come off. Then you can kind of reevaluate there. This is the kind of time to do it because, like, look, this year's it's going to be this year. Then you got 2 more after this. Then you got another quarterback on favorable deals. So there's been things that I've seen Ian Cunningham do from a front office standpoint that like it's a little bit more savvy, a little bit more nuanced. And I think when you operate through life with a little bit more tact than everybody else, you see things that other people don't. You get an edge. This becomes the difference between you and everybody else. And again, we'll see how the wins shake out. We'll see how the team performs. But I think that this trust, the holy triumvirate now of Matt Ryan, Ian Cunningham, and Kevin Stefanski puts the team in a little bit more of an advantageous situation to succeed. I guess the last thing is like, even when it wasn't good, Pitts was always kind of a good sport with his team. He always liked being here. People like playing for the Falcons, from what I've gathered. I mean, the only guy who didn't seem to enjoy that was Elijah Wilkinson, but granted, he got thrown into a role that he probably didn't want to do. Tyler Algier kind of wanted to stay, just the role wasn't the same for him. I wish he would have been here too. Because that's what I hate. Like when you draft somebody of value and then they got to leave, it's a business, man. Life's tough, life's hard. But you know what? We got to keep grinding. We got to keep putting in the work each and every single day. Because what else are we going to do? And on that note, this was episode 98 of the Blog and Dirty Podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or X at Buhler118. You can follow along with the show on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. On Twitter or the X, it's Blog and Dirty. Be sure to like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. It really, give us a 5-star review. Really, really helps the show grow. That's what we need here. You guys have been absolutely fantastic here in Blog and Dirty Bird Nation. I got to take some time off here because I spent time with my dad, my fiance. It's good. And we'll be back on Wednesday with another exciting show here. We're going to party like it's 1999 with episode 99. It's going to be a good time. I'm so excited. You should be too. Once again, thanks for listening. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.